a sprint.
Right, guys, tell me what this is. What do you see?
Sprints from agile methodology.
Okay.
Is it a backlog? I mean, because
Okay.
all requirements are mentioned there.
Hmm. Yeah. So actually, it's a backlog, right? You're right. It's a backlog. So the first concept in when it comes to the agile, or not even agile, as I said, you don't have to understand it as in a very complicated topic, right? It's very simple thing. You want to do something, you make a list. That is our behavior, right? That's how we organize our work, right? Backlog is just a list of things which you would like to do, right? A to-do list, you can understand it in a to-do list, and not very similar to, it's not exactly to-do list, but it is very, very similar in concept of how a to-do list works, right? You see a stack of requirements here, right? These are requirements, something which you would like to do, or which you would like to have in your project. Okay, what do you want to do is what defines a backlog, right? I want to create an application, I want to create a software. I will write what my software should have, right? I will write it should have this feature, it should have this functionality, it should have this thing, it should have that thing. All of these things are termed as requirements. Okay, now prior to this, all the sprint and scrum and agile, all before all of this, there were models, right? The models were like waterfall methodologies, the different kind of methodologies. Inside those methodologies, there were modelings which people used to do, and there, this concept of requirement, the concept of writing requirements in a list manner was not there. So there, the requirements used to take a form of a document, right? And those documents, you would have a lot of technical stuff, use case diagrams, lot of documents written in different formats, different kind of document. Usually it used to be, we used to call them, and they still exist, usually called as functional specification documents. You know or if I'm not getting the exact word, the FRDs, SSDs, the different.
SRS and DRS.
Yeah, SRS, correct. Correct. So these are requirement specification, requirement documents, right? uh, that is history. There are few projects still doing that, but that is actually history. Why people stop doing that, using those documents? Because they're very elaborative. They were one time, right? They were one time in a sense. You write the document, the client comes to you, you write the document, and then you sign it off. You'll say, okay, this is a contract. Whatever is in this, I'm going, whatever we have in this, I agree to it and my client agreed to it, and we both are in agreement, in a mutual agreement. And this is what I'm going to I'm going to develop, and this is what I'm going to get paid for what I develop. So it's a contract. Essentially it's a contract, isn't it? कि मैंने जो बनाया, जो लिखा हुआ है डॉक्यूमेंट में, उतना ही बनाऊंगा, उसका ही मुझे पैसा मिलेगा. That is a document. So that was contracts. That means once that document is created, there is no change possible. Nothing going to change in that. It was very rigid. So the idea was very rigid, right? If you compare that, so I'm not going to talk about how the whole transition happened because we already had that session previously. But now let's quickly fast forward to today's world, or agile's world, and there we write those requirements which we used to write in a document. Now we write it in a list manner, and each requirement is a segregated entity, right? It's an individual requirement. You can do it individually. Okay, you can develop that individually. It's not connected, or rather not rigidly connected to previous requirements. Other than that, it is not rigid in the sense you can keep on adding more requirements. It is not something where you have a document and the document is a contract and you cannot change it. uh, you know it's not something, you cannot break the sanctity of a because if you sign a contract, you have to obey the sanctity, or you cannot just modify it, right? Here there is no such clause. You can, whenever you want to have a requirement, you can just add a requirement, and then you can prioritize it, and depending on what is the priority and the size and the complexity and all those things, you can bring it up and start working on it, right? So that's the biggest advantage of having agile methodology in play, or in place of your work or in a project. What you see right now, as I said, is a backlog, a requirement. Now, if I compare this, or let's take this to next level. The next level below is the bifurcation of this list, the division of this list, right? So अब इस list को मैं एक साथ तो काम नहीं कर सकता, right? I cannot work on everything at the same time. That's how you do, right? Even everyone faces exam. Even I recently faced an exam. So I used to create a to-do list. आज मैं ये करूँगा, कल मैं ये करूँगा, परसों मैं 3 चीज करूँगा, उसके बाद ये करूँगा. So I had a list and I divided those lists into different chunks of work, right? So those chunks of work is actually called a sprint backlog. So what you see here is something like these 4 things I'll do in sprint 1, these 3 things then I'll do in sprint 2, then I'll do sprint. Don't worry about this 2 plus 3, forget this. But the idea is that I am dividing my work into different chunks. Okay, so this is called a sprint backlog. कि उस sprint में क्या काम करना है, देखो पूरा क्या काम करना है is a product backlog, and when you divide them, then you are dividing it based on एक specific period में कितना काम करना है. So I'm saying when my sprint is, let's say, 2 weeks, so in 2 weeks I'll do these 4 requirements. In sprint second I'll do this 4 requirements. In sprint 4 I'll do this only 2 requirements. You know the difference between these sizes. So it indicates the complexity or the work required to complete the requirement. That is what it indicates right now. And when you see it's a bulky, more width of this figure or this block, this rectangle, right? So this indicates somehow in this context it represents more work. So it depends how much you can actually do. So let's say if I say the size of this is 1, size of this is 1, size of this is 1, size of this is 1. So that means I can do size 4 work, any work which has size 4. Don't ask me what is the unit of size, right? Because there is no unit of size in this case. It is just a random relative number. In this case, we have, let's say, if this indicates 1, then this would indicate 4 or 3, let's say. So the idea is in a single sprint, you can do 4 user stories, right? Or in other terms, you can also say I can do 4 story points. So this size I was talking about, we can also say it is a story points. It could sound confusing now. Don't worry, just stay with me. I'll try to explain this in more detail. But every work, the point I'm trying to highlight here is every work which you have has a specific size. This is called as sizing, right? Because we need to decide how much, because size usually, how do you measure? You measure in terms of time, right? Because, okay, कितना काम है? ठीक है, ये 1 घंटे का काम है या 3 घंटे का काम है. This is the usual behavior, but this strategy somehow is not very fruitful, and the few intelligent people in the software world, when they created Agile, they thought of giving it trying to size a work not in terms of time but in some different unit. That is called as story points, basically. So we'll talk more on that. It's not very highly important right now because there's still projects who are not using story points. They still do or calculate the size based on the time it takes for a single person to do it. But it's not very accurate because a different person with different experience level can do the same task at different time. So time, measuring the work in time is not good. That's the primary reason behind why the time should not be used. But having said that, still project use that. Anyway, I've spent too much time on this. Let me move here maybe. Let me come here. Now, what these requirements are, right? So here you see everything as a requirement, which is not exactly true at all times. A product backlog doesn't always have the requirement only. It also can have other things. That is, whatever on earth you would like to do for that project comes in the product backlog. So it can have user stories, it can have bugs, it can have refactoring, it can have knowledge acquisition, it can have, if you're, let's say, if a new team member came to your team, comes to your team or joins your project, and you are giving him a KT, right? A knowledge transfer, for example, or you are teaching something to someone about something, then also you can add that entry in the product backlog. Whatever you wish to do in terms of with respect to that project, which is important for that project, you're going to add that in the product backlog. As simple as that. So product backlog doesn't always need to have requirements only or user stories only. It can also have other things like there are few defined categories. So one thing, it could be user stories. So when it comes to the requirements, they're actually user stories. User stories means how a user would do something which you want to develop. So, I mean, as name suggests, it's very simple. So Agile is very famous for keeping things or names very simple, nothing more technical and jargons being used there. Simple things. So user stories, what is a user story to use that functionality? So this is actually called as your requirements, right? Then you find a bug. Let's say you are testing something, you got some issues. Where you will raise it? You will raise it in the Jira board itself, and you can term it as bugs, right? So you can do that in the same product backlog. Then you have refactoring something, you want to change some existing behavior, something is not right, you can put it. Knowledge acquisition, as I said, you want to go to another team and you want to take a KT from someone, or you are doing a training, then also you can go and create a backlog. Whatever is which is relevant or related to the project will come here. Now you will see three things here. One is the item we already discussed in great detail. Then we have priorities here. So in the product backlog is not something where you just write things. It has to be prioritized. Something like when you actually write your issues or items in the page, for example, to-do list, you write at the top what is absolutely important. So whatever comes first or which is of high priority, your brain does it automatically, and that comes the first entry. So whenever you create a to-do list, usually it is in this order: high priority, low priority. The same way you have to design your product backlog. The priorities has to be decided, and the sizes has to be decided. Okay, so high priority, low priority, and the size. Which work is of what size you need to know beforehand. When you go and create a product backlog, you should be having that, right? If you don't have it, then the whole team get together and discuss it. Okay, these are actually comes under agile ceremonies. You have refinement sessions, you have lot of different ceremonies. We're going to talk about them later. Today is not the agenda for that. Today I'm going to show you how all of this is managed in a tool. So today our focus is not really the concepts of agile. It is how do you implement those concepts using a tool called as Jira, which is very, I should say, prevalent in many companies and projects and in different areas. So let me show you that. I already created a board for you guys. I'm not sure how many of you have actually seen this before, but this is how a Jira software looks like. This is what you're going to see when you go into a company. Okay, the idea is simple. There's a project. This is the name of the project. So name of the project usually indicates the name of the product, but it's not necessarily. A product can have multiple projects. Okay, does it make sense what I just said? A product can have multiple projects. Okay, for example, product is amazon.in. It's a project, but it can have multiple projects within. So for each project, you can go and create different projects inside the Jira, and there will be different teams, and they will have access to these items inside that project. If you want to create a new project, and one person can be part of two projects as well, doesn't matter. But usually a Scrum team has one project. So no, don't get confused. If you want to keep things simple, there's a one project. Whatever your application is, let's think that it corresponds to one project, one product. Okay, so here this is just an example of let's say a travel planner app. So let's say there is an application called as Travel Planner, and there people can come and they can plan their travels, something like, what do you call it, Make My Trip, right? Trivago, right? Not exactly that, but someone said something.
No, I was saying Yatra,
right. So something of that, that related to that domain. It's a travel domain app, but understand it as a planning activity. So you're not buying a package. You are thinking, okay, I want to go somewhere, And how would I go there, right? So you're going to create a plan. So how do you create plan? You'll say, okay, I'll stop from here, I will go there, then I will go reach that destination, then I'll do these things and those things, I'll do these many activities, and there are different legs to my travel. There could be my whole itinerary. So this application is about creating those plans. So anyone can come and create those plans, and they can ask anyone else to come and contribute there. Maybe their mates or fellow mates fellow travelers who want to go to the same route or itinerary, something like that. So it's just an example. You don't have to understand this. It's just for example, this is an application someone wants to get created, and they gave you this job to create it. So first and foremost, what you'll do, you will go and create a backlog, right? That is what I was talking about previously. You'll go and create a backlog. Who will create a backlog? Then you will have a product owner. Then you will have a BA. Usually product owner or BA, these guys are usually responsible for doing that, but not necessarily. Because if you see, there is an entry here called as project team. Anyone in a true agile project, anyone can come and create a product backlog entry. Okay. But usually those entries are actually discussed and prioritized. If they are rubbish, for example, you're working on a WhatsApp project, then you say, I want WhatsApp to be executable in a web browser. For example, WhatsApp is not individually executed on a web browser. It has to be in sync with the mobile at all times, right? And you think this is a good idea. You think that, okay, it should be working individually. Even my WhatsApp is not working. My browser WhatsApp should still work. You think that, for example, and let's say your product owner doesn't think that. Product owner says, no, this is not right, and we want everyone to be WhatsApp is to be primarily being used on a mobile. As an additional feature, they can also do it in a web browser, but the mobile, it should also always should be driven from mobile. So product owner or BA has a final say, but that doesn't mean you cannot go and create a backlog entry. If you think some functionality you should have, you can go and create a backlog entry for this. Okay, in a true agile sense. But we are not living in a perfect world. So if someone asks you who create the user stories, you will say my BA creates it or my product owner creates it. So there's a difference between what is realistic or reality, what is actually happening. So what is actually happening in many projects where the project which we are actually targeting, in those projects, you will actually see these kind of things where the product owner or business analyst actually go and create it. But in a true agile project, in a good agile project, anyone can go and create them. Usually user stories is what I'm talking about. These tasks and bugs, anyone can create, and they should create. I'm talking about user stories. So if there is a new functionality anyone thinks it should have in the project, or at a new feature we should have in that application, then you go and create a user story. So you can actually create three things, right? Rather, what did I say? You can say create user stories, bugs, refactoring, and different categories of items, right? Let's say if I want to create something here, right? I'll say, okay, I want to create a new functionality in the application. So you have actually three options here: story, task, and bug. Okay. I want to create a story. I'll go and click on story. I'll say, just for example, WhatsApp should be individually, or rather, because it is different. So I'll just write something else. Plan should be active. Guys, can you all go on mute, please? Okay. Travel plan should be active in all the countries. Okay, I'll go and create it. So now an entry has been created, right? Whenever you go and create an item in the backlog, and all those items are something similar to this, right? Whenever you go and create an item for that backlog, in the backlog, you're going to get, first of all, when the moment you create it, you'll get an ID. This is called a Jira ID. Okay, so here it's written as Jira 19. Usually in projects, it is something they use their own prefix. I mean, they have the option to use their own prefixes. So sometimes it can be called as AMZ19 or AB or whatever the prefix they want to give. I have kept it simple. I said it's Jira. So I'll say it's a Jira ID 19 to uniquely identify my entity in the backlog. So whenever I want to talk to someone, I'll say, okay, what about Jira 19? Can you tell me the status of Jira 19? What is the progress of Jira 19? This is how basically we talk when we go and work in a project. Okay, based on these Jira IDs, this is what is the unique identifier of every item in a backlog. Then what else do we have here? We have the status, of course, whether it's done, it's in progress, what it is. There are different buttons here. These are attachment. If you want to attach a file to it, you want to create subtask under it, because now let's say this feature story requires some efforts to be done in the UI, some efforts to be done in the database side, some efforts to be done in the API side of things. So there will be different subtasks needs to be created, and those subtasks will be assigned to different individuals, right? So you can go and create a subtask here as well. Let's not I'll show you how to do that later. This is just to add some links and all. If you want to add a link from external or another issue you want to connect with this, then you actually use links. Then this is the description. Right now there's no description. A description should always be there, because travel plan should be active in all the countries. This is just a definition, right? Here you need to actually write the whole description on what you actually mean by this. Let's say in the case it is a bug, for example, I'll say bug URL is not working. This is a bug. So here you need to tell what that bug is, what happened, what was the timestamp when the bug came, how to reproduce it. So all those things you need to put, some screenshots to say, yes, this is a bug, something like that. Okay. Then there are a lot many other fields, which again, it's something for later. This one thing called as epic. I'll show you what it is. Then which sprint it is part of, what are the components. So these things actually have to be generated beforehand. So you can divide your whole application into components, and then you put the components here, and a lot of other things. And you can configure these tabs as well, right? You can estimate it. This estimate thing is what I was saying when I was talking about this sizing, right? So sizing can be done in multiple ways. It could be done in time. So here this is actually represents time here, okay? But it can also be done using story points. The story point thing is little bit, or rather more very tricky. And previous batches I tried, I actually made a mistake of explaining this, and people were all confused about what the story point thing is. So I'll not try to do that here. But story points, few projects uses, and that is something which is little bit abstract, and people find it difficult to understand. So whenever in your case, whenever you go and you talk and they say, how do you do your sizing, right? How do you estimate sizing? They're one and the same thing. You'll say we have the tickets, and this is also called as tickets or items or Jira. And every Jira we actually put some. In Jira we actually put some details like we do it in a time manner, or time bound items. Sorry, time related estimation is what we do for each tickets. Guys, give me a minute. Give me a minute. Okay, sorry guys, I'm back. Yeah, so what I was talking, yeah, so the estimate thing, right? So estimate here, we are actually, you guys will be saying that we are doing estimates based on time. So we depending on how much time that specific item would take, we actually put that time there. Let's say you estimate that it will take 3 hours or 1 day. So based on that, let's say this bug fixing will require, let's say 1 day. So we'll say 1 day. Right, 1 day here actually represents 8 hours. Okay, so be aware, it's not 24 hours here. 1 day here represents 8 hours. Or you can actually put in the hours itself. You can say, okay, it will take me 10 hours, or I'll say 16 hours. You see, it had made it 2 days, right? Because 8 hours each day. So this actually estimate, this estimate you can do in the on the basis of time as well, which in many projects do. right? So nothing wrong in it. Now, right, this is about the attributes of what are the attributes or different kind of fields which are available in that specific Jira item, and these are available everywhere in all the items, different kinds of items. You see here user story, you see defect, you see a task. So task, again, let me just quickly create a task also. So I'll go and create a task. Task is something whatever you wish to do, right? I'll say I want to create an automation framework, and that's it. So this becomes a task, right? So first and foremost, you have a backlog. Let me just quickly summarize it. You have a backlog, and in this backlog we have list of items. You can add any type of items here. It can belong to different categories. The primary categories which Jira gives you is story, task, and bug, but it is not restricted to this. You can actually go and create different kinds of categorizations for your project, depending on your project. For example, in my previous projects or current project, we have like 15-16 types of issues which we can create, okay, based on different things. So it is customized, custom based. But ideally, it's stupid to create so many categories. I mean, it should be story, task, bug, or it could be a tech debt, there's a concept of tech debt, which is something which you need to do, which would produce a good value in your project. So anything could be a tech debt. For example, your framework creation is a tech debt, or enhancing your framework is a tech debt, right? So they can go into tech debt category. But right now, we are not worrying about that. We have these three things: story, task, bug. That's it, right? So remember this, that these are three things which you actually create or can create. Then each ticket which you create has unique ID. You refer to that item using that ID. This is called as, what you see here is called as epic. Epic is nothing but a collection of your functionality. So epics creations are not necessary, just how you organize your work. So since it's an unnecessary, not unnecessary, but it is not an essential feature right now for me to explain, so I'll skip this one. So don't worry about epics for now. What is the basic thing which in any project is these tickets. Backlog, inside backlog you have these tickets. These tickets can have three types: stories, tasks, and bugs. Each ticket has a unique ID. Then each ticket has, if you go inside here, you will see it will have few things. For example, it will have descriptions, who reported it, who is actually working on it. Right now it's unassigned, its priority. Then you have what else? Estimates, right? And then a few other things. Then you can also talk to whatever you wish to talk, or the team wants to talk anything. You can actually put that in a comments inside this, so that what's happening on a specific ticket, people actually update here. So whatever update you want to do for that task, you actually do it in a comment section. Previously, people used to send emails and all those things, but the good practice now is that if you're using Jira, if you want to talk anything about this, all the information about this should be part of this ticket. That is how the requirements are stored, captured, and audited in agile environment, right? All the requirements are actually present in the backlog. Even though the tickets are completed, it's not deleted, it's saved. So whenever you want to go back and see what was the requirement and what was the who worked on it, what are the things, updates on it, everything can be seen here. Then there are other things also: history, work log. Let's not talk about that now. It will unnecessarily confuse you. Just keep things simple. You have a backlog. Okay. Now let's talk about. And by the way, any doubt here so far? I'm being just going very fast. I don't know how much you guys are following and catching. आ रहा है समझ में?
Hey, very well question.
Stephen, you said something?
यस एक्चुअली तो एक डाउट था, ठीक है. फॉर एग्जांपल अभी अपना एक प्रोजेक्ट है बड़ा, ठीक है, तो उसमें मतलब एक 10 to 15 फीचर्स है बड़े बड़े, तो वो सारे इधर ही लिस्ट होंगे या फिर मतलब कैसा होगा? क्योंकि अगर सब कुछ हमने इधर लिस्ट कर दिया, मतलब उसके टेस्ट केसेस, वो सिनेरियोस और वो वर्क्स, तो फिर वो मतलब ये थोड़ा कंजेस्टेड ऐसा नहीं होगा?
नहीं, everything, the idea is everything has to be here. That's the first thing. सो कोई कंजस्टेड नहीं होगा। रिक्वायरमेंट यही टूल बनाई इस चीज के लिए कि आपको सारे रिक्वायरमेंट इसमें ही डालनी है, ठीक है। दूसरी चीज, आपकी अगर कोई बहुत बड़ी रिक्वायरमेंट है तो आप उसको ब्रेक करते हो। ऐसा नहीं होता कि मुझे वीडियो फंक्शनैलिटी बनानी है फॉर एग्जांपल, राइट। सो आप वीडियो फंक्शनैलिटी बनानी है, उसका एक टिकट बना दोगे, ऐसा नहीं करोगे, आप उसको डिवाइड करोगे। तो इसलिए उसके लिए एपिक्स यूज होता है। यू विल से क्रिएट एपिक, यू विल से वीडियो फीचर।
ओके, मतलब एक फीचर, एपिक मतलब एक फीचर, और उसके अंदर वो
नहीं,
सब
एपिक एक कलेक्शन ऑफ फीचर्स, ऐसा कैसे बोल सकते हो, एक अम्ब्रेला थिंग, राइट, कि वीडियो फीचर। सो मैं कहूंगा वीडियो फीचर, ठीक है। और फिर मैं क्या करूंगा, इस वीडियो फीचर के अंदर जाऊंगा और यहाँ पे मैं बेसिकली इश्यूज क्रिएट करूंगा। आई से टास्क ऐड अ सेव बटन, राइट, क्रिएट let's say MongoDB instance, राइट। सो डिफरेंट टास्क जो वीडियो फीचर को कंप्लीट करने में लगेंगे, आप वहां बनाओगे, वो यहाँ पे इस तरह से टैग हो जाएंगे, राइट। सो एपिक्स यहाँ पे यूज होता है जब आपको बहुत सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स हो, बहुत सारे आपका रिक्वायरमेंट्स होती है, सो आप उनको एपिक्स में डिवाइड कर लेते हो। एपिक्स इज जस्ट सिंपल थिंग, राइट। आपका जो बहुत मेजर रिक्वायरमेंट है, बड़ा रिक्वायरमेंट है, उसको आप पहले एपिक बनाओगे और उसके अंदर उसके टास्क क्रिएट करोगे, राइट। और फिर अगर इफ आई जस्ट गो टू बैकलॉग अगेन क्विकली और क्लियर और फिल्टर्स, सो आई विल सी ऑल माय टास्क। तो एसेंशियली सारे टास्क आपको बैकलॉग में ही दिखेंगे। सो डोंट वरी अबाउट कि कंजस्टेड हो जाएगा। यहाँ पे 2000, 5000, 20000 आइटम्स भी हो सकते हैं,
ओके।
नथिंग टू वरी अबाउट दैट। तो ये टूल बनाई इस चीज के लिए कि आप इसमें सारे रिक्वायरमेंट्स एक ही जगह रखोगे और फिर आप उनको प्रायोरिटाइज करोगे। आपको नीचे नीचे जाने की जरूरत नहीं। आप देखो क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है, जो इंपॉर्टेंट है उसको आप प्रायोरिटाइज करोगे। बाय द वे, हियर वी सॉ द प्रायोरिटाइजेशन थिंग, राइट, दिस प्रायोरिटी थिंग। हाउ यू डू इट हियर, यू मूव इट ऑफ। आपको लग रहा है नहीं यार ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, इसको ऊपर कर लो। आपको लग रहा है ओके ये भी इंपॉर्टेंट है, इसको भी ये हमको पहले करना है, प्रायोरिटी अप। सो आप प्रायोरिटी सारे इंपॉर्टेंट आइटम्स आप ऊपर करोगे, जो सारी प्रायोरिटी वाले हैं वो ऊपर की तरफ रखोगे और ये कीप ऑन रिफाइनिंग इट। दैट्स द ब्यूटी ऑफ हैविंग अ बैकलॉग वर्सेस अ डॉक्यूमेंट। डॉक्यूमेंट पहले 50-50, 100 पन्ने के डॉक्यूमेंट्स हुआ करते थे, राइट। वो ज्यादा कंजस्टेड अप्रोच थी। यहाँ पे आपने उस डॉक्यूमेंट को ब्रेक कर लिया है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ आइटम्स, इंडिविजुअल आइटम्स। तो डिवाइड एंड रूल कॉन्सेप्ट लगा रहे हैं जो ब्रिटिशर्स ने हमारे साथ लगाया था, राइट। सो वी आर डूइंग डिवाइड एंड रूल। सो वो पूरे रिक्वायरमेंट्स को हमने डिवाइड कर लिया एंटिटीज में, छोटी छोटी आइटम्स में, और फिर हम एक एक करके इन पे हमला करके इनको कंप्लीट कर रहे हैं बेसिकली। फिनिश, वी आर ट्राइंग टू फिनिश देम ऑफ वन बाय वन।
ओके। तो अभी हमने ये जो सारी स्टोरीज क्रिएट की है ना, तो फॉर एग्जांपल जो फर्स्ट स्टोरी है उसके अंदर भी हम सब टास्क कर सकते हैं क्या?
हाँ, कर
मतलब
सकते
उसको भी हम ब्रेक कर सकते हैं?
यस, यू कैन डू दैट। ओके,
तो
व्हाई
फिर
डू यू नीड टू डू दैट? बिकॉज हो सकता है ऑटोमेशन फ्रेमवर्क पे 3 लोग काम कर रहे हैं। एक फ्रेमवर्क आर्किटेक्ट काम कर रहा है और 2 ऑटोमेशन टेस्टर काम कर रहे हैं। फ्रेमवर्क आर्किटेक्ट क्या कह रहा है कि आई विल क्रिएट द बेस skeleton, right? Create, then add util methods, add db methods, right? So इस simple task के अंदर, which is I want to create an automation framework, के अंदर 3 सब टास्क हैं, different सब task is assigned to different people. So जब सारे सब टास्क खत्म होंगे तब ये टास्क खत्म होगा।
ओके।
और दूसरा तरीका इसको करने का ये भी है कि मैं एक एपिक क्रिएट कर लूं। तो मैंने वैसे ही किया है, देखो मैंने एक एपिक क्रिएट किया है, JUnit फ्रेमवर्क डेवलपमेंट, राइट। और JUnit फ्रेमवर्क डेवलपमेंट के अंदर मैंने इतने टास्क क्रिएट किए हैं। हर टास्क का भी सब टास्क क्रिएट हो सकता है, राइट। सो द सबसे ऊपर पेरेंट यूनिट होती है यहाँ पे एपिक, देन यू हैव टास्क और स्टोरी और बग, एंड उसके अंदर आप टिकट्स बना सकते हो और सब टास्क बना सकते हो। लेकिन हैविंग सेड दैट, जो एक्चुअली में जो आइटम है वो हमेशा एक टिकट ही होता है। देखो ये सारे टिकट्स है ना, दे ऑल विल टेक अ फॉर्म ऑफ अ टिकट। इवन एपिक भी मैं क्रिएट करूंगा, वो भी एक तरह का टिकट ही है, विच इज काइंड ऑफ लिंक्ड टू दिस। सो इसके अंदर मैं जाऊंगा फॉर एग्जांपल, सो यहाँ पे लिंक क्रिएट हो गया इसका, वीडियो फीचर, समथिंग लाइक दैट। ओके, so the idea is simple. I mean, what you originally asked was कि कैसे होगा, तो this is how you actually organize. So you can organize the whole work, but करना यही है, ये वाली नहीं करना है कंजस्टेड ना हो उसको सॉर्ट करने के तरीके, ऑफ कोर्स कंजस्टेड हो सकता है, उठा के सब सारे टास्क बनाते जाएंगे 2000 5000 किसी को पता नहीं चल रहा क्या हो रहा है. एंड दिस इज अ वेरी वेरी कॉमन पिटफॉल. दिस हैपेंस अ लॉट. लोग उठा के बना के डाल देते हैं उसमें, वो कब से पड़ा हुआ है किसी को होश ही नहीं है. दिस इज अ बैड प्रैक्टिस, राइट? दिस इज अ बैड वे ऑफ डूइंग इट. Jira gives you tools and mechanisms to handle all of this and to avoid that congestion using epics, subtask, task, and constant monitoring and refinement and prioritization. वो करोगे, इसलिए स्क्रम मास्टर का काम यही होता है कि भाई कंजस्टेड ना हो. दैट्स द रोल ऑफ स्क्रम मास्टर कि वो कांस्टेंट बैकलॉग को चेक करता रहता है. इवन प्रोडक्ट ओनर का भी यही काम है कि वो कांस्टेंट को चेक करता है और रिफाइन करता है, जो फालतू स्टोरेज उनको हटाता है, जो इंपॉर्टेंट है उनको ऊपर करता है, जो जरूरत नहीं है वो नीचे करता है, जो लो प्रायोरिटी उनको भी नीचे कर देता है. एंड अगर कुछ और कंजस्शन हो रहा है तो एपिक्स क्रिएट करता है. एपिक्स में एक तरह का अम्ब्रेला होता है, उसके नीचे अंदर बहुत सारे टास्क आ सकते हैं, something like that, right? But base unit in Jira is this ticket and it's ID. ये यूनिकली असाइन होती है, आप इसको कहीं किसी के अंदर भी रख सकते हो, एपिक के अंदर रख सकते हो, चाहे सब टास्क बना के रख सकते हो, बट it will still have a single existence, unique existence होता है इस entity का in Jira.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Now let me just show you quickly about what we discussed here, which is this is product backlog. Then we have to talk about where is it? Sprint backlog. Okay, so अब product backlog आपने कर लिया, अब इससे sprint backlog बनाना पड़ेगा आपको, right? Because आप सब पे एक साथ काम नहीं कर सकते, right? आपको टाइम डिवाइड करना पड़ेगा कि मैं किस वक्त पे क्या काम करूंगा, right? So that's why sprint, that's when sprint comes into picture. So you go and create a sprint, or right now when you go and create a sprint, you actually has a 0 items in that, right? So what you can do is you can actually put it here. You can say, okay, मैंने sprint 2 बनाया, इसमें मैं ये काम करूंगा, इसमें मुझे ये भी करना है, इसको नहीं लेते, इसको ले लेते हैं, ये काम करना है और मुझे ये स्टोरी करनी है. Then I have to do this. You know what I'm doing right now? I am doing sprint planning. So this is called as sprint planning. Sprint planning, people get together in a call and they discuss क्या भाई क्या important है, क्या priority है, कितना sizing है, कर पाएंगे नहीं कर पाएंगे, कितना estimation करते हैं फिर उसमें ही. Sprint planning time पे आप estimations भी कर सकते हो, right? These are different sprint, agile or scrum ceremonies basically. I think we discussed this in the last call, but I'll still send you one more useful link, some useful link so that you can study it, go through that. Okay. So this is basically a sprint planning and refinement session, and we are doing estimation here. And estimation के लिए भी एक word होता है, pointing poker. Sometimes this is a fancy word where they give story points, but don't worry about that. Everything can be done in a single call. We can say it's a sprint planning refinement session. You discuss what needs to be done in that sprint, and then you give it some estimation कि कितने दिन में होगा, कैसे होगा. और हर स्प्रिंट का एक पीरियड डिसाइड होता है. आप कहोगे ओके दिस स्प्रिंट को ये 2 वीक का स्प्रिंट रखेंगे हम लोग, हमारा हर वीक 2 वीक का होगा. तो डिपेंड करता है कि आपको 2 वीक में आप सारे आइटम कर पाओगे कि नहीं. सो यू कैन नॉट च्यू बाइट मोर देन यू कैन च्यू, राइट? सो यू कैन नॉट पुट ये भी करना, ये भी करना, ये भी करना, डिपेंडिंग ऑन कितना स्ट्रेंथ है आपकी टीम में, कितनी बड़ी आपकी टीम है, व्हाट इज द स्किल लेवल, हाउ मच टाइम यूजुअली पीपल टेक टू डू अ स्पेसिफिक पीस ऑफ वर्क. All of those factors comes into play and you decide how much you can do. So the purpose of this refinement session is to discuss कितना काम है और कितने दिन लगेगा और कैसे करेंगे और क्या क्या challenges आने वाले हैं. This is called a sprint planning, sprint refinement or estimation, all in together. I've just explained a single word. People can have different sessions for this, or people can, or project can do a simple plain session for this as well. Doesn't matter. Okay. But the idea is simple. Idea is you discuss before you start work on it. You estimate before you start work. उठा के सीधे करना शुरू कर दिया हवा में कि हाँ ऐसा नहीं करना है, right? So Agile says sit together, talk, see what can be done, what can't be done, what can be removed, what can be added, what is the priority, estimations, how much time it would take. If you think you cannot do it, don't take it. As simple as that. Don't overcome it. Okay, if you think you can't do this, move it back, that you can't do this. As simple as that. Then you can go and create different sprints. So right now my work is not started. Right now I'm just planning in which sprint I will do what. So this is my sprint 2. This is my, let's say, okay, I'll do this in the next sprint. Then I will do this in the next sprint, because this is a bug. All bugs has to have a high priority. It's not that I think, okay, this is a sprint 2, I'll not do this bug. This is not very important defect. However, by name it looks like an important defect, but let's say I'll say about us URL is not working, which is not important functionality. About us, right? So I'll say about func is not it's not working, so it's not important. So I'll say, okay, let's do it in a sprint 3. So I can actually create different sprint. So I'm kind of planning my sprint. So this is called sprint planning. I'm planning my sprints in what sprint I'll do what kind of task. Basically, this is what I'm trying to do, right? Now, once you decide everything, it's not mandatory. You have to define all the sprints, but 2-3 usually you should have, because when you work on a specific sprint, you should know what exactly you're going to work in the next sprint, right? So it's a good idea to have 2-3 sprints planned ahead of time. Okay. Now let's say I've done sprint 2, sprint 3. I've planned it. Now I'll say let's start working on it. So I'll quickly go and click on start sprint, and then here I have option to say, okay, I can say, okay, how much time usually I should take for my sprint. I'll say 2 weeks. 2 weeks is pretty standard. It will also take 3 weeks sometimes, right? So 2 weeks is standard. 1 week is very aggressive. Very advanced team actually does that, who have very good automation. Their CI/CD pipelines are super functional, all those things. So they do that. But 2 weeks is pretty standard. So this is what you guys also would be saying, that you are actually having this 2 weeks of sprint cycle. Then you want to write something. You write something. I want to complete all the tasks, or whatever your goal is, depending on what you want to do. Usually you don't do it. Your Scrum Master does all those things. And then you can start working on it. Excuse me. So all of these tasks actually are assigned different people. Right now I have, let's say, Sarang here. So I'll assign it to Sarang. And so this is what Sarang will be working on this. And this will be working someone, let's say Vision IT Technologies email is working on this. And I'll say, okay, and I will be working on this. Assignment doesn't happen here. It actually happens in the sprint itself, right? And this is how the work will start. Now, what will happen every day? There will be Scrum call, and we will work on it, and we'll update the status. Whatever status we have, we also keep on adding here. Work in progress, or you can say currently facing issue. And the idea is, whenever you put some comments or do some activity, there will be an email to everyone. All the team members actually goes, right? So everyone actually is aware what you're feeling, what you're facing, what are the issues, or what is the progress in your task. This is how people are actually in sync of what's happening, right? And depending on, oh, Sarang actually made it in progress. So you can actually go in.
I just moved it.
Yeah. I was kind of a bit surprised how
I was about to tell you because on mobile app I got the notification, and
yeah, awesome. So see guys, this is how it works. So for example, Sarang said, okay, he is working on something, he'll move it to in progress. So every day you come here and discuss, okay, what is the progress? This is how you talk. Okay, this is in progress. These are things which I am working on, and these are issues which I am facing, etc. And let's say Sarang said, okay, he's done it. Sarang, can you move this to done?
Yes, sir. Give me a minute.
Sarang said, okay, I'm done with my task. So you'll go and move it to done, and it will go to done. Let's wait for him to do it. And this whole view actually comes in the active. So if I go to backlog again, so backlog, you'll see in the backlog, you will actually go and you can see the same thing, same view, which you have backlogs, you have different sprints. Current sprint is sprint 2, right? Then you go to active sprint. So at one point of time, only one task can be, one sprint can be an active sprint. So see, Sarang has said, okay, he has done his task. It will put in, he will put it in the done. Then let's say I'm working on, this is not me. Let's say I'm working on this one. I'll say, okay, I'm also is done with the task. So I'll just move it here. So this is also done, right? And then this guy also is working. He will, what's happening? right? So I'll just move this here. Now let's assume the end of the sprint has come. Okay, or let's assume there is a task, there was some testing happening, there is a bug. So in between also I can go and create a ticket here. Okay, I can say, okay, let me just quickly create here. I'll say there is a bug is found, and I will say, okay, this is important, let's put it here. So whenever you try to make any change in the existing sprint, it says sprint scope will be affected by this action. So it's a good idea to have a backlog where you can keep on adding more requirements, right? In that sense, it is flexible. But it is not a good idea to make a change in the sprint, a running sprint, because that will affect the delivery of the sprint, because sprint actually is a time boxed thing wherein whatever you committed in the day one of the sprint has to be delivered at the end of the sprint. But if you try to modify this in between, it could have an impact on the actual deliverables of the sprint, right? So it's not a good idea to make a change during the execution of a current running sprint, but people does that. Anyone client can come, okay, I want this in this sprint only, and this happens. Shivan, you want to say something?
Akash,
Yeah.
yes. Suppose we have included 4 user stories in one sprint, and uh, we are not able to complete that sprint in 2 weeks. So suppose we are able to complete only 3 stories in 2 weeks. So what will happen with the 4th story? It will go back to the backlog, or the time will extend of the sprint?
Yeah. Let's
2 to 3 weeks, something like that.
Let's do that. So let's assume there was a new bug. So as soon as I added a bug here, it will come into the active sprint, and I will, let's say I've completed this as well. And now let's assume right now here it's showing 9 days remaining, but assume it's 0 days remaining. The time has done what Stephen just said. Let's try to simulate that scenario. It's done, and somehow this VT guy couldn't complete, right? It couldn't complete the task. So what will happen now? So I have 2 things to do here, okay? Because at the end of the sprint has to get over. You cannot extend the sprint. If you said the sprint is 2 weeks, that it should be 2 weeks, right? But what you can do instead is that you can move this ticket to the next sprint. If you couldn't do it, you can move it. So let's say if even Jira gives you this opportunity. So if you go and click on complete sprint, it will say 3 issues were done, 1 issue was incomplete. So what this incomplete issue is, this one, this in progress one, right? So it will say 3 issues were done, 1 issue was complete. Select where all the incomplete issues should be moved. So it is saying sprint will be over, but you have one incomplete issue. Where do you want to move it? So I'm saying I will like to move it to a sprint 3 or 4 or new sprint, or just move it to the backlog because it's not important. Or you can say, okay, I want to continue working on this, but I will work on this as a part of next sprint. Then simply say move it to the sprint 3 or the next sprint. Click on complete. You go back. If you go to backlog, you will see that task, which was create a MongoDB instance assigned to VT. It has come to the sprint 3. Okay. And now whenever you do, so the moment you do start sprint, the same thing will happen again. The same process will come here, and you see what's happening here. So I want to create an automation framework had 3 subtasks, right? This symbol represents subtasks. So this is having 3 subtasks, and these are different issues. So this is UL is not working, and this time in this sprint he can actually go and complete this. This is also completed, and then he can say, okay, this can also be in progress and all, and this is completed, let's say. Right? And let's say somehow I couldn't complete one more subtask of this ticket, and I say complete sprint. Again, it will say 2 issues were done, 1 issue was incomplete. Where do you want to move it? I'll say move it to sprint 4. So the idea here is whenever you have some leftover in that specific sprint, it usually goes to the next sprint. You usually cannot extend the sprint period. Sprint period always remains the same. You can do it as a part of the next sprint. All right. So
Okay.
tickets are done. I am right now in the sprint 4, and that's how it goes. Last thing quickly I'll try to explain, which is how you write these stories, right? Because if you see previously we were writing, just creating the headers, but we are not creating any details. So the details of a user story is actually written in a given when then syntax, and that's what actually we do when we write our Cucumber framework, right? When we write our test cases in Cucumber. So test cases in Cucumber are not actually test cases, they are scenarios, or also called as user stories, right? So this is also user story, right? This is also user story. So user story description has to be written in a given when then format. So you say given traveler is logged in something, and when something happens, then user is able to do this and do that. So this is how basically the stories are written. I'll leave this up to you to read this. I'm going to give you guys access to this so that you can jump on to here and see how these stories are written, and you can just play around. Okay. So you can go and see how these descriptions are written and play around with this. Or rather, I'll not allow you guys to mess this up, because if everyone jumps into it, you can actually bring havoc to this. So it's better I go and create a different, by the way, this is a free tool. You can actually go and do it yourself. You can go and subscribe to Jira software and say try for free version, and then you can create and then you can do it. But the only thing would be that you will be doing it alone, or you can actually team up, and you can actually 3 or 4 people can jump onto a single project and try to do things together. That will be better approach. Or you can I actually can facilitate that and give you that access, and you guys can actually work on a same platform, right? So I'll try to do that, but you are not restricted with that. You can actually go ahead and try your own instance and your own project. But the idea is that first of all, you need to actually you give it a try, guys. You give it a try. It's not very complicated. You do weird things, you play around with this, you will find a lot of things which you don't understand, and I want you guys to raise those so that I could answer them. Okay, so try doing that. All right, so this brings me to the end of what I wanted to talk about today. Any questions so far? Because people more or less are silent somehow. Is it too complicated, too simple, or everything is crystal clear? नहीं आया समझ में क्या?
Hello sir, am I audible?
हाँ रोशनी बोलो.
Sir, is it related only status or we just send our code also?
कोड नहीं होता है इसमें, राइट? इसमें कोड कोड का कोई काम नहीं यहाँ पे it is how to track the work and a project. This is project management tool.
Okay.
राइट? एक प्रोजेक्ट को कैसे मैनेज करोगे आप, क्योंकि प्रोजेक्ट में तो 2 लोग भी हो सकते हैं और 2000 लोग भी हो सकते हैं, राइट? हाउ विल यू, और सब लोग अलग अलग चीजों पे काम कर रहे हैं, कौन किस पे कैसा काम कर रहा है, कितने दिनों में होगा, एस्टिमेशन कैसे होगा, बजटिंग कैसे होगी, तो पूरा दीज आर ऑल प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट एस्पेक्ट्स. सो टू मैनेज ऑल ऑफ दिस यू यूज दिस जीरा टूल.
बट अगर किसी ने टास्क बराबर किया नहीं है, स्टिल इफ अगर उसने अपना टू डू प्रोग्रेस से यानी प्रोग्रेस में कर दिया, देन कैसे होगा? हम कैसे बोलेंगे कि हमारा टास्क कंप्लीट हुआ?
उसके लिए गिटहब है ना आपके पास. गिटहब पे सारा कोड ट्रैक होता है, आपके पास फंक्शनैलिटी होती है, आपको डेमो देना पड़ता है. अगर आप कह रहे हो मैंने कोई काम कंप्लीट किया है, तो यू हैव टू शो इट, राइट? सो एंड जब भी आप कोई टास्क कंप्लीट करते हो तो आपको उसको डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करना होता है. सो दिस इज एक्चुअली अ गुड क्वेश्चन. दिस इज व्हाट आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट, गाइस. इफ यू आस्क क्वेश्चंस, then I can actually, it gives me opportunity to explain that. So whenever you have a task and you say it's complete, you have to show it, you have to demonstrate it. It's called as demo, right? And वो demo आपको end of the sprint करना ऐसा नहीं है, आप रोज भी कर सकते हो. People can ask you कितना काम हुआ है, so you can show in the status calls or a separate call. ऐसा नहीं scrum call में ही करना है, आप अलग से दिखा सकते हो कि इसको देखो ऐसे ऐसे ये किया है मैंने, अब ये किया है और ये ऐसे चलता है. एंड उसके बाद इवेंचुअली वो जो कोड है उसकी टेस्टिंग भी होगी, राइट? सो जो तुम कह रहे हो वो कि वैलिडेट कैसे कर रहा है, राइट? तो वैलिडेट करने के लिए तो आप लोग हो ना. ये यूजर स्टोरी पे आप काम नहीं कर रहे, यूजर स्टोरी पे तो डेवलपर काम कर रहा है. और इसके साथ में आप एक करस्पॉन्डिंग टास्क भी क्रिएट करोगे. आप कहोगे ओके ये कोई फंक्शनैलिटी थी और इसके लिए मैं एक टास्क और बनाऊंगा, उसको नाम दूंगा टेस्ट यूजर इज एबल टू ऐड न्यू ट्रैवल एक्टिविटी व्हाइल क्रिएटिंग अ न्यू ट्रैवल प्लान. वो उस पे टेस्टर काम करेगा. तो जब डेवलपर कहेगा मैंने एक अपना काम कंप्लीट कर दिया, वो अपना डेमो दे देगा, देखो मैंने ऐसे से बन चलता है, फिर आप उसको टेस्ट करोगे और आपका टास्क तब कंप्लीट होगा जब आपकी टेस्टिंग कंप्लीट हो जाएगी, राइट? सो फॉर एग्जांपल इफ आई जस्ट क्विकली शो दिस, आई से लेट्स से दिस इज द वन एंड लेट्स से आपने एक टिकट बनाया, टेस्ट दैट user is able to create the plan, right? And you can create it as a task because not a user story. फिर आपने कहा start sprint, start. यूजर ने बोला, डेवलपर ने बोला मैं इस पे काम कर रहा हूँ, डेली डिस्कस किया, उसने बोला ओके आई हैव कंप्लीटेड माय टास्क, दैट मींस वो आपको डेमो देगा कि देखो ऐसा किया है, ऐसे चलता है वगैरह वगैरह, ओके? देन व्हाट यू विल डू, यार तुम्हारा टास्क क्यों नहीं है इसमें, where is that test one? I created it, right? कहाँ गायब हो गया? I don't know. Let me quickly create it again. इधर पहुंच गया यार, okay. I'll go here and then इसने कंप्लीट किया, तो आपने इन प्रोग्रेस किया, इन प्रोग्रेस कर, when you are actually in progress then you actually validate it. आप देखोगे क्या किया है उसने, ठीक किया है, चल रहा है, नहीं चल रहा, and once it is working fine and you are satisfied with it, then you will mark your task as completed, कि यार टेस्टिंग भी हो गया है. This is how you validate. Okay, and then you say complete sprint, complete. That's it.
सर देन हमारा कोड रिव्यू वगैरह ऑल गिटहब में ही होता है?
हाँ, वो सब गिटहब पे होगा, कोड रिव्यू वगैरह सब कुछ गिटहब पे होगा. That doesn't happen here.
Okay.
यहाँ केवल प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट हो रहा है. बाकी वो सारी चीजें आप यहाँ पे लिंक डाल सकते हो गिटहब का. बेसिकली यू कैन से दिस इज द एविडेंस, दिस इज द गिटहब लिंक, दिस इज द रिपोर्ट, दिस इज द असाइन, दिस इज द एविडेंस, दिस इज द स्क्रीनशॉट, वो सब आप यहाँ डालोगे. लेकिन कोड सारा गिटहब पे जाएगा क्योंकि गिटहब से ही तो सारा डिप्लॉयमेंट होगा. मेन कहानी तो गिटहब पे ही हो रही है, कोड तो वहीं है सारा, वहीं से डिप्लॉय होगा, वहीं से एप्लीकेशन जाएगी, वहीं से वेब एप्लीकेशन दिखेगी आपको. यहाँ थोड़ा कुछ है, ये तो एक केवल एक लेयर है ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट थिंग, on top of code to manage the work is what it is. That's it.
तो इसको हम टेस्ट मैनेजमेंट टूल की तरह भी यूज कर सकते हैं ना, मतलब
हाँ, इसको टेस्ट
वगैरह
मैनेजमेंट
ऐड
भी कर सकते हैं. उसके लिए टेस्ट केस यहाँ डायरेक्टली ऐड नहीं होते, उसके लिए आपको एक प्लगइन ऐड करना पड़ेगा. तो देयर आर डिफरेंट प्लगइन्स कॉल्ड, वन इज एक्सरे एक प्लगइन होता है, तो वो आपको एक ज़ेफियर करके प्लगइन होता है, वो आपको एक इसमें ऐड हो जाता है यहाँ पे, तो वहां से आप फिर इसमें कर सकते हो. सो मेनी पीपल यूज इट फॉर टेस्ट मैनेजमेंट आल्सो, बट वो डायरेक्टली जीरा की फंक्शनैलिटी नहीं है, तो आपको यहाँ नहीं दिखेगी एकदम से, आपको प्लगइन ऐड करना पड़ेगा, और नॉर्मली पेड टूल्स होते हैं वो. सो मैं आपको कोई फ्री वाला ढूंढ के देख सकता हूँ, मैनेज योर एप्स, मैं देखूंगा कोई फ्री वाला होगा तो मैं ढूंढ के बताऊंगा आपको. अदरवाइज एक फ्री वाला आता है, कभी फ्री नहीं होता, मतलब ट्रायल होता है 30 days वगैरह का. सो यू कैन ट्राई डूइंग दैट, यूजिंग दैट. बट यस, so Jira can be used for project management, task management and test management. So it gives you opportunity to do all the three things.
Okay.
So I'm giving you 30 seconds or 1 more minute to think of any question. Yeah, tell me.
सर हम जो ये कर रहे हैं, मतलब हम एक से ज्यादा हम स्टोरीज हम बैकलॉग में ऐड कर रहे हैं, और मतलब फ्रॉम दैट बैकलॉग वी विल क्रिएट अ स्प्रिंट. बट सर हम डिफरेंशिएट कैसे करेंगे कि दिस सेट इज अ पर्टिकुलर मतलब सेट ऑफ अ प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग, और दिस सेट इज अ पर्टिकुलर स्लाइस ऑफ ए मतलब स्प्रिंट बैकलॉग.
यहाँ पहले ही बना लेते हैं ना. देखो हम यहाँ पे स्प्रिंट्स बना सकते हैं. हमने स्प्रिंट बनाया और हमने स्प्रिंट में मूव कर दिया उसको, ठीक है. अभी ये स्प्रिंट 5 है, स्प्रिंट 6 है, एक बार में स्प्रिंट 5 ही चलेगा. अगर मैं यहाँ पे स्टार्ट स्प्रिंट करूंगा तो वो स्प्रिंट 5 को ही लेगा. 2 स्प्रिंट एक साथ रनिंग नहीं हो सकते. अगर मैं यहाँ पे करूंगा कि ये स्प्रिंट चला रहा हूं मैं, तो वो इसी स्प्रिंट का ही काम बना के रख लो आप, स्प्रिंट जितने आपको बनाने हैं. लेकिन काम तो स्प्रिंट 5 पे ही होगा बेसिकली एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम।
ओके
तो मुझे कोई मतलब नहीं है मेरे स्प्रिंट 6 में क्या है, 7 में क्या है, बैकलॉग में क्या है। अगर स्प्रिंट स्टार्ट हो गया तो मैं केवल स्प्रिंट पे ही फोकस करूंगा, दैट विच इज स्प्रिंट 5 टास्क। और एक्टिव स्प्रिंट्स में भी वही आएगा, केवल स्प्रिंट 5 के ही टास्क आएंगे। जब भी मैं कंप्लीट कर दूंगा उसके बाद स्प्रिंट 6 की बारी आएगी बेसिकली, तब स्प्रिंट 6 पे बात जाएगी जो करंट स्प्रिंट हो जाएगा। स्प्रिंट 5 खत्म हो चुका है।
ओके
ऐसा
सर,
समझ
हम
लो।
मतलब सिलेक्ट कर सकते हैं ना डिफरेंट स्टोरीज, मतलब मुझे पर्टिकुलर सिलेक्ट करनी है स्टोरीज और उसका एक स्प्रिंट बैकलॉग क्रिएट करना है, तो वैसे कर सकते हैं।
यस मैंने यहाँ क्रिएट स्प्रिंट करो, उसको आप यहाँ पे जो डालना है वहां डालो, यहाँ खुद की भी बना लो।
ओके
और यहाँ से डालना है, यहाँ से भी डालो। आपका राज है यार, कोई दिक्कत थोड़ी ना, अपना ही टूल है। ठीक है ना, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है इसको। सी बेस्ट वे टू अंडरस्टैंड इट इज दैट यू एक्चुअली ट्राई इट। इट्स अ टूल, राइट? टूल, you cannot learn tool without using it. So use it and then you will understand what's going on. Don't try to just learn it theoretically. Just try doing it और practice करो उसके ऊपर, तो आ जाएगा। इतना कॉम्प्लिकेट नहीं है, सिंपल है।
सर आई वांट टू आस्क, अगर हम स्प्रिंट में जो टास्क लेते हो प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग में से डिलीट कर देते हैं क्या? मतलब अगर करंटली स्प्रिंट में चल रहे हैं तो प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग में भी सेम टाइम हो रहेगा क्या वहाँ पे?
नहीं, देखो, मैं एक बार में एक ही जगह रहेगा, या तो बैकलॉग में है, या फिर वो स्प्रिंट के अंदर है, या फिर वो कंप्लीट हो गया है तो गया।
कंप्लीट होने के बाद वो प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग में नहीं रहेगा? नहीं,
गया ना, प्रोडक्ट बैकलॉग नहीं बचा ना। फिर वो आप जब आपका जो एग्जाम में आप फेल हो जाते हो और या पास हो जाते हो तो वो एग्जाम आपके बैकलॉग में नहीं रहते ना, वो चले जाते हैं। तो यहाँ से चले जाएगा। आपने यहाँ से जो जितने मैंने टास्क किए, पहले यहाँ बहुत सारे थे ना, अभी 11 ही बचे। मैं सारे करता जाऊंगा, सारे खत्म हो जाएंगे, मतलब काम कंप्लीट हो गया।
और मुझे देखना है
हाँ, तो देख सकते हो आईडी उनकी बरकरार रहेगी। You can actually go to reports. Actually, you can see those things, those tickets. So you can go to, let's say, I'll go to sprint report and actually see these things, right? कि मैं sprint 5 पे क्या किया, sprint 2 के tickets कौन से है, सब दिख रहा है। देखो, ये आप खोल के देख भी सकते हो, complete कौन से हुए, not complete कौन से हुए। ये मैंने पहले complete किया था तो done में दिखा रहा है, देखो। सो एवरीथिंग इज मेंटेन्ड, कोई डिलीट नहीं होता है इसमें। एक बार क्रिएट किया ना तो डिलीट नहीं होगा, दैट्स फॉर श्योर, राइट? कंप्लीट हो जाएगा तो आपको यहाँ व्यू में नहीं दिखेगा, बिकॉज यू डोंट वांट। अगर आपने कोई चीज कंप्लीट कर लिया तो उसको देख देख के क्या करोगे? खुश, मतलब उसको देख के खुश होगे कि मैंने देखो क्या काम किया, कंप्लीट कर लिया, राइट? यू डोंट वांट टू डू दैट। सो जो कंप्लीट हो गया वो कंप्लीट हो गया, इट विल बी गॉन, बट इट इज नॉट डिलीटेड फ्रॉम द सिस्टम, इट्स स्टिल इन द सिस्टम। यू कैन एक्चुअली गो एंड चेक इन द रिपोर्ट्स। आप रिपोर्ट में जाके आप चेक करोगे, आपको टिकट दिखेगा, इट विल मार्क एज डन। आपको लग रहा है यार ये डन नहीं है, गलत डन हो गया था, वापस कर दो उसको। यू कैन एक्चुअली चेंज इट टू से इट इज नॉट डन, मे बी इन प्रोग्रेस। अभी वो फील नहीं आ रहा है, but I think this should work. Let's see if it's shown here now. No, जी 12 हो गए। जीरा 8 आ गया होगा, देखो जीरा 8 आ गया, देखो ये आ गया। मैंने अभी इसको किया कि कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ है, सारा ने गलत काम किया, ढंग से नहीं किया, तो आ गया वापस, राइट? सो एवरीथिंग इज देयर, इट जस्ट इफ इट इज डन इट विल नॉट बी डिस्प्लेड हियर एज सिंबल, नो रॉकेट साइंस। ओके
सर, मुझे कंफ्यूज हो रहा है कि मैनुअल टेस्टिंग में हम लोग बग लाइफ साइकिल सीखते हैं ना, बट देन ये फिर वो स्टेटस कहाँ पे होता है? वो रियल लाइफ में होता है कि नहीं? मुझे
वो सब होता है, वो पुरानी चीजें। अभी क्या है ना, अगर आप जीरा यूज कर रहे हो ना तो वो बग लाइफ साइकिल, डिफरेंट लाइफ साइकिल और सॉफ्टवेयर लाइफ साइकिल वो तो है क्या, पर बग लाइफ साइकिल के जो डिफरेंट स्टेजेस हैं वो नॉर्मली क्यूसी के स्टेजेस होते थे, क्वालिटी सेंटर यूज होता था पहले। अभी वो सब मॉडल नहीं है। आप सिंपल कहोगे भाई टिकट हुआ है नहीं हुआ है, और कोई ज्यादा उसमें रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है, सिंपल है। टास्क कंप्लीट है या नहीं कंप्लीट है, सिंपल। तो इसमें वो बग लाइफ साइकिल, आपके जो डिफरेंट लाइफ साइकिल, उसके 3 ही स्टेज हैं, ओपन, इन प्रोग्रेस, कंप्लीटेड। ठीक है, दैट्स इट. सो जीरा में इतने ही 3 स्टेजेस होती हैं, और भी हो सकती हैं. जीरा इज फुली कस्टमाइजेबल, सो प्रोजेक्ट के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है. पर आपको कंफ्यूजन नहीं होना है. मैं क्यों ये बार बार कहता हूँ, क्योंकि एक चीज करने के लिए इंडस्ट्री में 2000 तरीके हैं, आप सारे नहीं कर सकते ना. सो इंटरव्यू में आपको क्या बोलना है, जो आप करते हो आप ये करते हो. दैट इन योर बग, आपके करने के 3 तरीके हैं, 3 स्टेजेस होती हैं. बग क्रिएटेड, इन प्रोग्रेस एंड डन, दैट्स इट. वो सब पुराने चीजें हो चुकी हैं. डिफरेंट लाइफ साइकिल में यानी 5-6 कितने होते थे, और वो रीटेस्टिंग एंड डिफर्ड, सो इस तरह के होते थे. अभी भी होते हैं उस तरह के. लेकिन आपको कंफ्यूजन नहीं करना है, तो आप कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे.
बस हमें पता रहना चाहिए.
आपको पता, कोई पूछे तो ऐसा नहीं बोले क्या पूछ लिया, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. अरे ये क्या पूछा इसने, पता नहीं. तो पढ़ के रखो वो चीज. पर एक्चुअली में ऐसा यहाँ पे यही होता है जीरा में. दिस इज व्हाट यू गोइंग टू सी. ओके गाइस. हाँ बोलो.
एक बार स्प्रिंट स्टार्ट होगी तो हम उसमें टेस्ट केस ऐड नहीं कर सकते ना, क्रिएट नहीं कर सकते ना?
नहीं कर सकते हो टेस्ट केस को स्प्रिंट से कोई मतलब नहीं है. बाय द वे, टेस्ट केस इज नॉट रिलेटेड टू स्प्रिंट. टेस्ट केस तो आप एक अलग लिस्ट होती है, उसको अलग शीट मान सकते हो, उसको अलग एंटिटी मान सकते हो. उसका स्प्रिंट से कोई मतलब नहीं है. एक स्प्रिंट से टेस्ट केस क्रिएट हो. टेस्ट केस इज नॉट अ टास्क, राइट? क्रिएशन ऑफ टेस्ट केस इज अ टास्क, एग्जीक्यूशन ऑफ टेस्ट केस इज अ टास्क, राइट? बट टेस्ट केस की लिस्ट का स्प्रिंट से कोई मतलब नहीं. तो आप टेस्ट केस को ऐसे ऐड नहीं करते हो स्प्रिंट पे. आप टेस्ट केस क्रिएट करते हो, और जो भी आपके टेस्ट केस आप लिखते हो, टास्क बनाते हो, आई वांट टू एग्जीक्यूट दीज मेनी टेस्ट केसेस. और जब टेस्ट केस कंप्लीट हो जाते हैं तो आपका तो काम कंप्लीट हो गया मेरा. पर आप बीच में ऐड करते हो, वो टेस्ट केसेस का कोई स्प्रिंट से डायरेक्ट रिलेशनशिप नहीं है. ऐसा रिलेशनशिप है कि भाई स्प्रिंट के एक स्प्रिंट में आप एक टेस्ट केसेस क्रिएट कर रहे हो, या फिर टेस्ट केस एग्जीक्यूट कर रहे हो. दैट्स ऑल इट इज.
सर टास्क मींस टिकट्स क्या?
हाँ, टास्क टिकट जीरा ऐसा बोल सकते हैं.
ओके. एंड रिक्वायरमेंट्स मींस यूजर स्टोरीज.
यस.
ओके.
ठीक है guys, I think it's quite late now, 9:50. I think it's 1 hour 30 15 20 minutes, I guess, right? So let's do one thing. You all try to create your own Jira logins. Try to play around with it. Then within 2-3 days, I'm going to, or rather I'll give you at least 5 days to do this activity. Do on your own. Try to explore and ask questions like hell in the group. Then in the next session when we have, I again take some time, devote some time in Jira to answer your questions. And then what we'll do, we'll create a common platform. We'll add there, and then we'll try to see how to work on these things together as a team. Okay. And then I think you will get enough familiarity with it. You will familiarize yourself with it, and the whole fear of what is Jira will go away, because I have seen people very afraid of Jira, which is, it is like nothing. It is simplest possible thing ever. Okay. So, and usually that fear is usually happen when you don't do it. अगर आपको आज से 1 हफ्ते बाद भी क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं जीरा कैसे करता है, काम करता है, या बहुत बेसिक चीज समझ में नहीं आ रही, मतलब आपने किया नहीं है. आप उसको ट्राई करो, बहुत सिंपल चीज है, इतना कॉम्प्लिकेट नहीं हो जाएगा. ठीक है. एंड आस्क क्वेश्चंस so that we have something to talk about in the next call. All right. Last thing is